Hey everyone, happy Sunday. Welcome to Virtual Veg Fest Live. We're pretty excited about today. Of course, it's Sunday and not Saturday because we didn't do a Saturday because it was July 4th. So there he is. There's Ben. And so thank you to Crafters Organic, I keep wanting to do it the wrong way, for sponsoring this week's Virtual Veg Fest Lives. And of course, the Plant-Based Network is a partner with Virtual Veg Fest. And if you could shop at virtualvegfest.com, that'd be great to support our vendors so everyone can get through this and get past the pandemic. It's really cool. It's like a beeping Tom. And then, and of course, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel right now, we have a cute little promotion going. If you become one of our subscribers at Virtual Veg Fest on YouTube, you'll be entered into a raffle for a gift pack from either Follow Your Heart, Hodo Foods, or Crafters. So please do that, and we can do that monthly. So please subscribe. We'd love to see you there. So let's talk about Ben, also known as Honey LeBronx. I know, yay. So I met Ben at the Atlantic City Vegan Festival by Kendra Marissa. Kendra Marissa, I made him late for his MC duties because I asked him if he would come to North Carolina and be a host MC of the Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge Gala, to which we exchanged phone numbers. And of course, he did come as Honey to the gala, and he has been coming down as Honey for the last 2 years, which has been fantastic. Which means I got to see you not only here in North Carolina, but you also came to Asheville Vegan Fest and MC there, and to the Edison Vegan Fest and MC there as our host for our education. And, you know, I've not only had you come to our events and be part of them, but I've gotten to know you personally. And I think a lot of people who meet you and hang out with you end up with like a little crush. And I just think you're just awesome. You're so much fun to hang out with.
Just me that has a crush on me.
Well, of course, everybody has a crush on Ben, including Ben. So it's been great to see you at the AR conference, and to, sneak up to your hotel room as you're getting ready, to be able to get some you and me time instead of being amongst all the people, singing with you. I got you, babe. It's all these things that we're able to do. So talking to you about, the drink. What is the drink that you have that I was like, stop drinking that? Red Bull, right? Red Bull. So just so you know, so obviously Ben and I have this like cute little relationship going on, and we're very fortunate to have him here today because our topic is going to be talking about, finding a job and being vegan and finding a vegan job because they're not always out there and not always easy to find. But one of the things that Ben and I have both done is we've created our little areas within the vegan community to earn income. And it's been wonderful for me because I'm probably a terrible employee. And then it's much better working for myself. And I have a feeling Ben's the same way. So I'm going to throw it at Ben so we can talk about him and tell us a little bit more if you don't know who he is. And of course, we can talk about Honey and we can talk about a whole bunch of stuff. But the main focus today is to talk about finding that dream vegan job or how to create that when especially there isn't one. And then we've got a pandemic on top of that. So Ben, I'm going to throw it at you.
Well, first of all, this is okay. The C4 original strawberry watermelon and ice. Is there a better flavor suggestion out there? But it doesn't have L-carnitine. That was the reason I decided, oh my God, I need to stop drinking energy drinks because Dr. Priyamba Naik, she has become, I adore you too, but she's become, I think, my favorite person in the world. Like I'm angry she doesn't live across the hall from me where I can just like run into her every day. And she said that L-carnitine is the ingredient in Red Bull that basically carne, as in meat, carne, it basically causes your body to keep producing the same, I don't know the word, chemical, enzyme, something that your body has to produce when you're eating meat. It has to produce to break it down, and that has a huge effect on your heart. So as far as my heart health, it's like I never stopped eating meat because I'm still drinking Red Bull, but this does not have L-carnitine, and it's delicious. So yeah, during a pandemic, by the way, I want to start off by saying I have ADHD. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, um, which I'm saying that as a disclaimer, but not as an apology. It's not that there's something wrong with the way my brain works. I'm just what they would call neuroatypical. My brain doesn't function and work, and more to the point, my stream of consciousness, my thought process doesn't work the same way like a normal person's would. So I'm going to be all over the place, and somehow I will end up talking about spreadsheets. Go with it. Um, but yeah, I guess I'll start with just an introduction of who I am and what I do. So I'm Ben Strothman, out of drag. I am a photographer. I'm a theatrical photographer and a portrait photographer. I think it's useful to say all this because these things you'll later hear me tie them in to what I do today and what's next for me that I'm currently building. So I have about 24 years experience now as a headshot photographer, shooting headshots for actors and live theater photography. It's funny, I'm so well known for being Honey the Bronx, the vegan drag queen, but for years I was most known as that guy from Playbill. Here in New York City, I was the photographer for Playbill for the Broadway yearbook. I went backstage at every single Broadway theater to get photos of the ushers, the stage manager, the wardrobe, the costume, you name it. And and from that, and then from BroadwayWorld.com, I was there like event photographer. So every opening night, a party, every curtain call, every press rehearsal, blah blah blah. That is what I had been doing for the most part. ADHD is already starting. I took the Wellbutrin already, so I know my next thought will come in a second. But I was saying what it is and what my background has been. So that's sort of where I got my start. But about 10 and a half years ago now, October 2009, I did drag for the first time. And it's funny. My friend Alex Michaels, who later got on RuPaul's Drag Race as Alexis Michelle, did my makeup for my first day in drag. And then I walked over to the pageant, and backstage, I run into this guy who's getting his face on. We start chatting. That guy turned out to be Bob the Drag Queen, winner of season 8 of RuPaul's Drag Race. We became best friends, roommates. Bob the Drag Queen is my drag mother. So, in this weird, miraculous way, I went from the thing that I thought I moved to New York for. Oh God, I can feel the tangent count. This is going to be a lots of tabs are open kind of conversation. But in my mind, the thing I was moving to New York City for back in September of 2000 was to be a musical theater actor on Broadway. And what's funny about that is I could not imagine any other possibility for my life back then. And now when I think about it, it's more like, oh yeah, that was cute. Like, yeah, it's it's fun to have a dream when you're a kid, but that's not what I would want to do with my life. It's a cool gig. It's the thing I think I would have fun doing one day. Um, but getting involved, I got involved in photography because in my mind I thought, well, I need total flexibility as an actor. I need to be able to do what I need when I need to do it. And I thought, photography would give me that flexibility. In a way, it did, but running your own business will never give you like freedom and like I can. It's a ball and chain. But after so many years of doing photography, I really got. It just started to hurt that I'm not the actor. Like I'm what Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way, what she would call a shadow artist, serving my art but at one remove. So I'm not on stage expressing myself, but I'm following the person who is, and I'm taking pictures of them. And after a while, it just became, it like started to hurt. Like as well known as I was only known for that. Like all these Broadway stars that I've worshipped as a kid, and now I know them, I work with them, I'm having dinner with them, and they don't know that I sing. They don't know that I'm an actor. So finding drag was a really interesting thing I never expected. That felt, I mean, I always was up for it. Like if you'd asked me when I was 3, like, do you want to get in drag? I'd be like, do I? But I never realized this is what I would be doing with my life. And I think suffice that to say, what I do now for a living is I think I'm best known for having my cooking show, The Vegan Drag Queen, only 10 episodes over the last 10 years. I'm really taking my time. And I've also got a podcast, Big Fat Vegan Radio, just entering its 8th year now. And that's sort of had always been my main thing that I'm known for doing. And of course, I started traveling, giving some speeches and whatnot. And about 3 years ago, last month was my first time I ever tried doing a fundraiser drag show. I can elaborate later on what had me start that and how that got started, but I had a hunch I needed to try doing a show to raise money for charity. Oh my God, it worked. I couldn't believe how successful it was in every regard, especially financially. I did it again twice in, I think November. Was it November? In Atlanta, right after the Atlanta Veg Fest, and then in Knoxville, Tennessee, right after that. And January of 2018, I started off my new year. I was, for whatever reason, I'm going to pause and say there is a wonderful book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. It's actually included in a anthology of her work. It's called The Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn. When I started reading her, she sounded like some new age author, only to find like she passed away like in like the 30s or 20s. Like this is an old book. And she said in the book, never violate a hunch. If you have a strong internal directive, a strong gut feeling that you need to take a course of action, never go against that. And I just had, I for some reason thought, I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to go back to Wisconsin, visit my family for 3 weeks. No one ever needs to visit their family for 3 weeks. That's crazy. But while I was there, I'm like, well, while I'm here, I should do a show in Milwaukee. And I'm like, oh, I should go back to Madison, where I did my first show in June, because that was so successful. I should also do Chicago while I'm, wait, how far is Minneapolis? So I'm like, okay, wait, what's in Michigan? Forgetting Indiana's even a thing. And I ended up doing 5 shows in 10 days. And you know how I knew I was onto something, right? Because my mom was protesting at every turn, like, Ben, you're taking on too much. You're burning the candle at both ends. They've been saying that their whole life. And it's always been like, yes, this is how I need to operate. But I did 5 shows in 10 days. Prior to this, I'd never, to my knowledge, I mean, with 1 or 2 exceptions, I'd never been on stage alone doing a 60-minute drag show, just me and holding the audience's attention. I was certain that that's the one thing I could not do, is just be on the mic, riffing with the audience, having fun, keeping them entertained. And I know that I've gotten good enough at that I'm counting on it, that fact would surprise you, Helene. That you're like, you aren't good on, like, you're so entertaining to listen to for hours and hours and hours. This is going to be a long talk. But I did 5 shows in 10 days. My first show ever. When I got off stage, I got off stage. There's a moment when you're on stage where you don't know how long it's in, but you know now it's time to call it. This is the last number. Leave them wanting more, but not having done too much. I got off stage and realized that was 90 minutes. I was out there for 90 minutes. I didn't even go through all my material yet. And that's when I realized, like, Bob the drag queen always used to tell me, you know what your strongest talent is as a drag queen is just being on the microphone, hanging out with the audience. So I'm like, you're kidding. That's the thing that I'm most scared of because I have no script, nothing to go by. But in that moment, I realized I can do this. And in January 2018, I did my first tour, rented a car, and just decided to carve. I had never contacted clubs before and just said, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's how it works. And at the end of that 10-day, 5-show tour, I get, you know what? There's such taboo about discussing money. I'll just openly talk about money in this situation. I raised a little over $3,000 for charity, and it's a 50-50 fundraiser. So whatever comes in, half goes to charity, half goes to me. So I made 3,000. My whole life as an adult has always been, you know, if I could just get to a point where I'm making 3,000 a month, then I'd be able to get by. I'd have everything I need. And I'm like, I just made $3,000 off the books in 5 shows in 10 days, and I have 20 days left to do it. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. And this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. That's where I'll pause. I think that's a great place to stop.
Well, first, I want to say thank you to Linda, because one of the things she posted as you were talking was Helena is in fact the best person in the world. So I love her. And there's Jen is watching.
That's
Pax
why it pains me.
There.
Can I not see the comments?
You know, we can be equal.
From my end? What's that now?
Oh, so we can be equal. You know, Priya and I could be.
Oh, sure. Well, listen. I mean, if I have a lung collapse, then I'm gonna lean towards her a little bit more. I'm just gonna open.
That's fine.
I'm gonna open the link and see if I can watch the streaming version that the guests can see, because I'm not seeing the and I don't have a list. I just got my aligners from Smile Direct. What's that now?
No, I was going to say Pax says that they're a fellow vegan photographer, and Brianna Fox says, love this crazy bitch with XXO.
Wait, Pax is here?
Yeah,
Pax. Oh, hi. Hey. Oh, my God.
And Patricia Campana says, good afternoon. And Wendy Leisha says, destiny and feeling fulfilled, which is a great thing to put up there. So thank you, everyone who's watching. Of course, you can interact with us, so please feel free to continue to comment and ask questions if you want to ask questions. That would be great. And so we're going to, well, if you know Ben, this is normal. So yeah. Yes, Pax is here. So yes, definitely the Pax.
By the way, for everyone who is, if anyone's ever frustrated, like, okay, you were talking about this, you didn't get to that point yet. I want you to know I'm also frustrated that I don't get to the point yet. I'm like, why am I not there yet? I've been talking for so long. But well, yeah, and as questions come in, of course, I can answer them. But I guess the thing that we were going to talk about today was really like creating a career or a path or a purpose for oneself inside of the world of animal rights, like how to. I mean, I don't want money to like cheapen it, but we do live in a capitalist society where we need money, and I could give a whole different talk on my vision for a currency-free society. I just don't think human beings need money, and the more I think about this, the sillier it seems to me that we even have such a thing as money. And that people believe it's a real thing that we're beholden to, because you're like, how could we get by without money? I'm like, well, I don't know. But if we asked any other animal species, they've all managed to figure that out. So just putting that out there. But since, you know, we all have bills to pay and food to put on our family, as George Bush said, I remember when I was newly-ish vegan, I was listening to the Our Hen House podcast, because of course I was. And someone wrote in with a question about how do I just became vegan like 5 days ago, and now I want a career in animal rights. Like, I don't, that feeling where you're like, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing anymore because ethically I'm not okay with anything except for 100% ethical veganism. And their advice, I mean, maybe they give different advice today, but their advice back then was like, oh, honey, no, like there's like 7 jobs in the entire world. Well, that's not exactly what they said, but what they basically said was like, it's rare enough that don't count on that. That's just not what happens. And I remember hearing that, and there's something in my nature, something in the way my brain is wired. When anyone says something's impossible, even when I hear myself saying it about myself or the world or someone else, it doesn't sit right with me. I almost get offended at the idea of something being impossible. I mean, like, if we need any better proof, the Wright brothers were like, yeah. No, I know that you don't think human beings can fly, but like, I know that there's a way. Let me just figure it out. And what's interesting about that story is after their first successful flight at Kitty Hawk, this was a North Carolina thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. After their first successful flight at Kitty Hawk, the newspapers, even though they were there and saw it, they were afraid to print the story because no one would believe it. I mean, that's how bound we are to the idea of things that are impossible. And so when I hear something's impossible, it tells me like, oh, cool, you get to be the first at something. Like, kind of like Tanya Harding, like, I am the first U.S. American woman to land a triple axel in the Olympic competitions. And I love to say this will be a fridge magnet eventually, but when you tell a drag queen something's impossible, you've just paved the way for her. So I liked the idea that I'm like, well, that's not true for me. But then again, I mean, I became a drag queen and vegan a month apart from each other, both about 11 years ago, and I guess this fall, 11 years ago, and so I managed to find something for me. But like, let's be honest, I was not making a full-time living as a drag queen, like, ever. Not it really wasn't until 2018 when I started. As soon as I started doing my fundraiser tour, I almost never went back to my photography studio. I had a few clients in the several years, but and don't get me wrong, I love photography. I love getting to work with another artist to represent them in a photo. There's something so, like, there's such a bond. It's so sacred, but the business of photography and taking care of customers and finding their pictures and editing them and blah, blah, it just was not fun for me anymore. Exactly, I was looking for the word. That was it. But okay, and the train of thought just went. So I'm just gonna wait for the next one because I found when this happens, if I try to get on the train that's already too far away, I'm just getting sweaty. But if I wait for the next one, it comes back around, and then I'm fine. So there we go. It's back. So I guess I'll talk about. By the way, and feel free to just interrupt me because usually it's just one long stream of consciousness. You'll notice when I'm talking, if I ever get to the end of a sentence and I'm done with what I have to say, people get confused and they think they've dropped the call because it doesn't occur to them that I've just finished a thought. It's like, wait, did I lose the connection? Right?
Okay,
It's
so we'll
weird,
go over
right?
some of the comments. Right. So just so you'll take a
Yes.
break. So Donna asked if you need a vegan virtual assistant. And I'm pretty sure that if you're willing to volunteer, he's willing to have you because I know you've posted about that. And
Actually,
yeah.
Donna, if you go to vegandragqueen.com/volunteer, there is a survey where you can communicate your interest in being a volunteer. Not exactly a volunteer, but I like to call it someone who's like assisting me in creating the difference that I'm out to make. And you can tell me what you're good at. You can tell me how much or how little you're looking to get involved. whether you want to just take on one special project or whether you're like, no, like, what do you need help with? I want to help get the stuff out of your way and free you up to keep creating more stuff. So, vegandragqueen.com/volunteer. I thought of everything.
Exactly. And Donna is busy helping save pigs. So she's doing a really good thing out in the universe. And then, yes, absolutely wonderful. Wendy said, well, you're doing what is in your heart and what motivates you. It's great that you can focus on it and make a living. And then Pax said that he read about a man who lived without money for over 10 years and posted it where he blogs, which is in the comments, which is pretty cool. And Brianna said, you got to get creative, make your own way. When others say you can't, laughing out loud, got to do it then. And I'm the same way. I'm cut from the same cloth. I mean, tell me that I can't do something. And I was told not to start Triangle Veg Fest. That was one of the things I was told not to do.
Really?
Really?
Oh,
really?
I love that. You know what? I just started watching. I don't know the full title of the program, but it's on Netflix. It's basically the story of Madam C.J. Walker, which it's funny. There's all these. Like, I think it's going to be impossible to talk about whatever we're talking about without touching on racism and Black Lives Matter, just because I'm realizing for people of color, that's an everyday thing. That's an everywhere you go thing. And we have this option of acting like that's something we do in February to be nice, or something we do for the month of June to like look like we're, to avoid looking bad, in other words. But if you're not white, like you're always having to deal with it. It's like once or twice a year you get the little assist from the white people, and then suddenly the burden is entirely yours again. So I'm kind of just making peace with that. Having finally seen that as clearly as we saw it in June and May, I'm realizing now that like if my work going forward does not always include that to some percentage, then I'm not doing it right, and I'm doing something wrong. So I probably will touch on that. Mark Boyle. I will read this about the man with no money. I'll read that later. But and that's another tangent I could say about a homeless. I have a friend of mine. I'll make this quick. A friend of mine who stays with me sometimes in return for like helping me, and like he's also a dear friend. We adore each other. But what I love is he can just crash for a day, a week, 5 months at any time, and like almost without needing to tell me. And I can call him up wherever I am in the world, like, hey, in my room, there's these old dirty tights, and I need you to wash them by hand and ship them to me overnight. We scratch each other's backs. So I used to look at him as though, oh my God, he's getting on in years and he's homeless and doesn't have a place of his own. And then finally it hit me one day. I'm like, Ben, he doesn't need a place of his own. He has 7 apartments. He's got my place. He's got a place in Tribeca. He got a place in the Upper West Side. He is just like sitting on the veranda every day, enjoying his morning coffee during this pandemic because he's like, oh yeah, I got a scoot. I got this nicer place to go so I can be alone. And I apologized to him one day because I'm like, I kind of always, I'll just say it, I viewed you as someone who needed fixing because of your housing situation. And I finally realized, like, you're the smartest guy in the room. And then I also realized he's also making more money than me and doesn't have to pay rent and has 7 options of apartments. So, and he's like, yeah, like, thank you for finally getting it. Like, there's a reason I do it this way. What other questions were there? What did Brianna say, the last one?
Brianna said a couple of things. Excuse me. She said, got to get creative, make your own way when others say you can't. And then she said, I can see you morphing your activism. I appreciate you standing up for the anti-racism agenda as it's so important. And I'm more than aware, as you're more than aware, that we're both out there. You're more out there posting about Black Lives Matter and calling out racism where you see it every single day. I see you doing it. And kudos to you for standing up because it's incredibly important. I just commented on one of your posts today, I'm pretty sure.
Today, yeah.
I responded to somebody.
I lately I'm not able to follow. I've never had a problem falling. One of my greatest talents is falling asleep. I once fell asleep at a Green Day concert. I once in high school during gym class while swimming caught a nap. I mean, it wasn't a full nap. I wasn't in REM sleep, and I wasn't fully doing the breaststroke, but like I was still swimming and kind of like sleeping a little bit. Don't try this at home. But as I'm getting on in years, and with the stress of this pandemic, I don't know that I'll be able to read this to recreate it without looking it up first. But I read something that said if you're feeling a little extra tired lately and like you're not being as productive as possible and you're judging yourself for not having your act together or for not or for just feeling kind of weak or kind of foggy or kind of tired, they said your body is in a state of like round the clock 24/7 constant stress mode. And they said like your body is this is where I can't remember how they said it, but they said like your body is basically entering this kind of a mode because it can't deal with these circumstances. So when you think, God, I'm a little extra tired, yes, give yourself that extra nap. If you wake up on a day, I've had 2 or 3 days during the last 114 days where I woke up and I was like, I'm going to sleep in. And then it's 5 p.m. and I'm like, you know what, Thelma, let's just keep on going. And I slept in till the next day. And I'm like, I'm just going to do a 24-hour, thing. So there is that stress from what's going on now. That is, yeah. So I'm not sure why I said that. I'm sure as soon as I try to continue going on, I always remember why I said it. But there is also that stress that I'm carrying right now of constantly doing the work to be anti-racist and calling people out and having to field those conversations and blah blah blah. And I'm not going to call that activist burnout. I'm not going to call that ally fatigue, because like the truth is like I basically, if I'm going to show solidarity, I have to make it an everyday thing. I have to shoulder this burden every day because that's what people who aren't white have to do. They have to field the same question. So imagine being asked, where do you get your protein? But you're asked it in 10 different ways, 10 more times than you're normally asked it, But yes, that's why I was saying the sleep thing. So last night I went to go to sleep and I'm like, okay, all right, I'm ready, sleep, take me. I can fall asleep in 10 seconds if I want to. And it just didn't come. And like when I chatted with you earlier today, I had not been asleep yet. And then finally I took like a 1 hour nap before this. And yet life is not fair. Guys are allowed to get away with anything. Like this is me literally having rolled out of bed and not a stitch of makeup on. But right before taking that nap, I had like dropped a little mini bomb, and then I saw like that I'm getting comments, and I hate to say, but like I saw like who I'm getting comments from, whom I'm getting comments, and I'm just like, oh, I just don't, because like the more you try to deal with the comment war in the moment, the more comments you're gonna create. If you like check it once a day, then you can like speak to what's been said and then move on. And I can also trust that in the gaps in between, other people will also facilitate this in the comments. But yeah, I'm just that's one of the things, Helene. It's such a relief. When I met you, I remember. I don't know if you remember this. I told you I always have this stress about being hired. Because like if someone's paying me to do something, like, oh my God, now I have to really deliver. I can't mess it up, blah, blah, blah. And so the fact that you would book me for like multiple events in a row, I was just like, don't mess this up. Don't mess this up. Like don't disappoint this woman. And like the whole time we're working together, I'm like, wait, you're fun. Like I'm enjoying hanging out with you. you're cool, you're laid back, you're easygoing. Can I be your friend? And so that was like awesome. And then on top of it, the relief that you're also on the same side of history with regards to the rights of Black and Indigenous and people of color. That wasn't a stroke. That was just a little bit of a lisp caused by this. I just got my new aligners in yesterday, but you can't take for granted. I'm finding who is how like with this. I almost said apocalypse, but I meant to say pandemic. But would I be wrong? with this apocalypse, it's kind of like being in a zombie movie where like you find out your best friend is like a COVID truther, denier, anti-mask person, and you're like, oh my God, he's been bitten by the zombie. I love this person, but I gotta shoot you. You're gonna turn into a zombie in a second. And that same feeling is like you don't know who you can trust. You don't know who is out of their mind and who is whatever. Not out of their mind. I don't want to stigmatize mental health, but so of course it's such a relief to find out that your friends are like, yes, wear a mask, be responsible, don't be a jerk. And then on top of that, with all of the like racial injustice recently, it's also wonderful to see that you're not like, well, why should I be blamed for something my ancestors did? You're like, no, you're like, roll my sleeves up, I'm in the trenches with you, what do you need? I got your back. It's scary to see that like you can't. There's if you gave me a list of my friends and told me to sort them by who's gonna feel which way about racism, there's no rhyme or reason to who it is. So it's so you are just a constant relief. You're constantly a relief. There's no other way to say it. So I'll pause for questions as I slip my shoes off, just in case there's anything else to work in. Otherwise, at any time, I can also just continue with my TED Talk about finding a career for yourself. How about questions?
Okay, so what was that? All right, so let's we do have a request to get back to the subject, which is fine, which is okay. And there's a lot of comments that we've had. Yes, there's a lot of comments about what we're talking about, what you've been talking about, which is great. And you can definitely look at those later. And very supportive. Thank you to everyone who's commenting and interacting with us. And just so you know, when it comes to creating your dream vegan job, Ben and I both just looked at what was needed in our communities and created what we thought was needed. Triangle Veg Fest came about by me looking around Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, and asking the public, the community, hey, do you want a Veg Fest? And they overwhelmingly said yes, and we put it together in 4 months. And Triangle Veg was just an annual event in 2014. It became a nonprofit in 2015. It became monthly markets. It became multiple states. It became a fundraiser to raise money for people, animals, community organizations. We donate to so many different people because the events are successful. We produce events and we create education around the public, learning about what vegan is and what plant-based is. And of course, now with the pandemic, pivoting to virtual Veg Fest, partnering with the Plant-Based Network, which you can watch 24/7 for almost a year now. You can watch plant-based news, comedy, entertainment, cooking shows, exercise with a Spotlight magazine and a plant-based fans. There's all these things that have pivoted from the pandemic. And that's because we have people who don't want to work for other people, who say, what can I do now to make sure I can survive to get to the next, whatever that next is. And you do have to have a certain type of personality to do these types of things. And for Ben, as you can see, this is no different than sitting down with him for dinner. It goes all over, but that's what the fun is, and that's what you all get to watch and be able to interact and watch our conversation.
This isn't even different from sex. My God.
True.
Like, can we just get back to what we were doing? I know you're talking about all this fun stuff on the side, but come on.
Right. I mean, so in regards to creating your dream vegan job, can you do it? Yes. Can you look at your skill set and what you think is needed out there and do it? Yes. If you happen to live in a city that needs a veg fest, you can do that. It's not easy to create an event to produce a festival. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving people. As far as I'm concerned, you need to be laid back as I am and take things in stride. You cannot expect anything to go in any certain way or manner because it doesn't. And if you go into it with that understanding, it's a lot easier. I know one year in Durham, the lights went out, and I got like a text message that said somebody came and found me. And they were like, "The lights are out," and I looked at the room and I went, "Well, it doesn't look bad." I was like, "Okay, let's figure out how to put the lights on." Because if it had been
Yeah.
the electricity, my phone would have already been blowing up. It was just that the lights were out, so overhead. So I was like, "Oh, let's go turn the lights back on." Nobody noticed. I was like, "Oh, lights back on." I think someone intentionally did it, which is weird. But either way, you just kind of roll with it. And
Yeah.
as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned, everyone in that room, vendors, attendees, anyone you're working with, need to never know that there's something wrong. Like, never know. Like, if I blow my top, it's normally over the tiniest things. It's not over the really large issues.
Of
It's the small,
course. Of
small things.
course. And you know
Yeah.
the funny
It's
thing
like,
about
why
that
the
is there never is anything wrong. I think part of this life, I guess I'll speak for myself. Drag is not about being a man and dressing up like a woman. For me, drag is about whatever it is, however it looks, make it work. However it shows up, make it work. I remember I was assisting someone else once with an event, and before we started, they said, "Listen, we have a great turnout. There's so many people. I think it's more people than we've ever had, and that could look like a problem when you walk into the room. The amount of space you'll have to walk around will not be as much as you feel you need. There are chairs in the aisles, blah blah blah." He said, "Before we go out there, I need everyone to commit to making it right. Like, not making it wrong that it's that way, but making it right. Like, yes, this is what it is. This is how it looks, and it's perfect exactly this way." Um, a while into my touring, I got to a point where I finally realized it was in Ithaca that I realized if I am relaxed when I go to start a show, I have no energy. I have no energy, and more importantly, I have no like creative energy. Like, I'm not quick on my feet. I don't think of quick funny things to say. I'm not funny. I'm just kind of like, okay, what do I do now? And what I've noticed is it's always the shows where something awful happens. Like 10 minutes before the show, they're like, the sound person didn't show up, or like we don't have a microphone, or I mean, like I remember Irvine, California, or was it Santa Ana, Orange County. I like 5 minutes before going on stage, he's like, "All right, break leg. Oh, hey, one thing really quick. It's like a real like Republican Orange County, blah blah blah. So there's like a local prostitution ordinance which says you cannot take money from people in the audience, and they can't touch you, and they can't physically hand you money. But have a great show, go out." And I'm like, that's the whole thing. Like, uh, and I had to go out there and just make that work. But because that thing happened, see, back to the ADD thing for 1 second, because it is crucial. While I'm talking about my ADD, you out there listening, you map that onto your thing, whatever your thing, and you know you have a thing, because everyone's got their thing. My thing is ADHD. If you give me and person A the same task to complete in the same amount of time, and we both finish at the same time, and we both complete the work just as well as each other, I had to work 4 times harder to do it because my brain go. If you ever seen the Family Circus, circle cartoon where the mom gives the kid a letter. She's like, here, go mail this. And instead of going right to the mailbox, it's like through the swing set, around the thing, up on top of the roof, jumping off through the street. It's like this completely roundabout way of getting to something. But that's the way that my brain works. Can you imagine me trying to work for someone else? Can you imagine me trying to just be a waiter at a vegan restaurant, which I've done? Can you imagine me just being a vegan baker, donut maker for the Cinnamon Snail in Brooklyn, which I've done? There's too much me in the way. So I remember one of my first jobs in New York City was at a publicity office, just being like an intern. Not intern, like a floater, and she was in like the day that she was kind of like not the whole we're firing you conversation, but sort of like inviting me to consider being fired. Like, have you considered maybe just bartending, Ben? They're like, this is not where you need to be. Like, this is not what your strengths are. Not saying you're bad at this, you're just so good at this other thing. Go do that. So it's kind of like out of necessity that I ended up creating and in fact, my entire family is basically all business owners. Like my mom is a famous cheesecake lady in Wisconsin, not vegan, but my mom just couldn't just be a waitress. She had to keep asking about the menu and asking about the desserts and asking, well, what if we did this with that? And then one day she just went into the kitchen and started making a cheesecake, and that famous German restaurant became famous for their cheesecake. They used to be famous for just being fancy and for their food. Over time, they're like, oh my God, you have to go to the Boulevard Inn and get the cheesecake there. And now she opened it's such a great story, my mom's story. She was like a divorced, single mother, living in the projects, working as a waitress, taking this job because she needed the money. And the one of the owners, the owner's son, my dad, they start dating, whatever, and now he works for her, and she is Susie Strothman, pillar of the community, and it's a woman-owned business, and anyway, but I'm realizing that the reason everyone in my family is a self-starter or an entrepreneur is because, like, the way our brains work, there's just no other way for us to go about it. We can't have someone in the way telling us how it has to look or how we have to do it. We know what we're trying to do, and we just need to be allowed to pursue that without, all that bureaucracy of like, well, this is your job, this is my position, this is the chain of command. So I find it very interesting today that instead of just trying to be a Broadway actor where someone else says, here's what you get to say, here is when you get to sing and what you get to sing and whether or not you get to sing, and then it's the same thing 8 times a week. I love that for me, it is never the same drag show. It's often the same numbers, but like it's always a different experience. I'm going to pause for water and for comments.
Well, Pax said that he guest hosted a vegan conference in February for United Poultry Concerns, and I have so much respect for organizers of these events. Yeah, it's a lot of people. It comes easy for me. I think that's what pretty much we're saying to other people. If you want to create your vegan dream job, you want to create your dream job, is you have to focus on what your skill set is and what your positives are and your strengths, and you have to build up your weaknesses because they're going to come out. And everything that you do, they're still there. So you have to, I mean, I've had to apologize a lot. So because of my behavior in the starting of doing these events, because it's a stressful time, so I haven't always been the nicest. Sorry,
learning
not a day.
How to apologize, I'm finding it's one of the most valuable skills that I've learned, and not just how to apologize, because I'm not someone who says I'm sorry often, not because I can't or won't. That's not what someone needs to hear when I have harmed or negatively impacted someone. What they need to hear is, hey, I said I was going to do this, but I didn't. And instead I did this or this or this. And here is how I imagine that probably affected you. And and here's the impact that that had on you and me in our relationship. Here's what I see got in my way, or here's what I allowed to happen that I did that. It's like I recognize it now, and going forward, here's what I'm putting in place so that you can count on me that that will never happen again. And if it does, please call me out on it because I'm, this is something I now need to know to watch for and get better at. But like that's so much more satisfying to hear than just like sorry, because when you say sorry, it's like you're just buffering your discomfort for a moment. But yeah, learning to apologize is it's a great life hack.
Yes, it's imperative if you want anyone to work with you.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things is, especially when you're working with a bunch of volunteers. You
Yeah.
know, they don't
Yeah.
have to help. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
They don't have to show up. You know, you do this for 7 years and you have a team of people that are willing to travel to other states with you to be part of, going out to eat and having that yummy food like we had in Asheville, at
Yeah.
Plant. And, it's imperative. You have to learn just to, you have to be self-motivated. You have to manage your time. You can sleep all day and work all night, depending on
Mm-hmm.
what it is that you're doing. That's
Yeah.
okay because you work for yourself. So as long as you
Yeah.
get your stuff done when it needs to be done, you can do it whenever you want. I'm not a fan of mornings. So I don't, that's why
Same.
these are never in the mornings. They're never going to be in the mornings because I don't want to be up in the morning. I want to sleep and then wake up. I go
Yeah.
to sleep late. I don't want to have to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning to
Yeah.
commute or go anywhere. So when you have those motivating factors, it's a little easier to try and figure out what you can do. And it's not easy because you have a pandemic and it wiped out all my income, you know. so
Yeah.
you have the stressors of the fact that you have to pay for all your bills for your health insurance if you're going to have it, and taken care of. You don't get sick pay, you don't get vacation pay. So when you don't work a day, you don't get paid. And that's
You
something
know,
that you have to factor in.
one thing I think is really important to consider, based because of what you said. Has me thinking. When I first moved to New York, I had a friend of mine. I'll try. I'll make it a short tangent. Blah blah blah. He ended up saying to me, he's like, "Wow, you are really good at asking for help." And I was just like, I was 20 and adorable and had no idea. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, when you need something, you just specifically ask for it with no problem. I'm like, everyone does that. He's like,
Yeah.
no, everyone does not do that. I'm like, really? Why wouldn't they do that? He's like, people have a very hard time asking for help. And I'm like, get out of here. Like, never would have occurred to me. It's just my natural state is like, can you help me? But I also have to remember to create, hey, can you help me? Not as, hey, can you help me? But hey, here's what I am out to cause in the world. And I would love for you to be a part of helping me create this. And could you do this or this or this? There's a better way I could break that down. But in short, asking for help is being of service. Asking for help is giving someone the opportunity to be generous and to feel useful. If I could see everyone, I would say, raise your hand if you love helping people or love giving gifts to people. Everyone's hand goes up. I'm like, all right, now keep your hand up if you love letting people help you and love, accepting gifts and compliments. And like most of the hands go down. They're like, exactly. So that it's fun to give and it's fun to offer and fun to help. So give people an opportunity for that. And very often, if I'm stressed or depressed or when someone ever tells me they're depressed, I'm like, not that I'm a psychiatrist and not that I'm saying this is an answer to depression, but they're like depressed. And I'm like, okay, cool. Call someone and find out who is who needs help with something. Like, go find out who's got some dirty dishes and go and scrub their dishes and feel useful. And like, I guarantee you'll feel, I mean, that doesn't treat depression. But like in that moment, you'll feel better. My mom deals with depression. She used to say, when I'm depressed, what I do is I scrub the house from top to bottom. Okay, Google, cancel. No one thought you are canceled. So my mom says, like, when she's depressed, she scrubs the house from top to bottom, cleans the whole house, and does about a week's worth of cooking. So there's like meals ready to go in the freezer and whatever. And she's like, and when I'm done with that, I still feel horrible. But I feel horrible in a clean house with food ready to go. Like, it's, but yeah, learning to ask for help for me has been I think I should pivot here to talk a little bit about my model and how I do what I do, because everything about my fundraiser tours is oriented. It's all centered around like a volunteering model, basically. Now, I have training as a like leadership coach, instilling leadership in other people. That is its own whole long story. But one of the things when I do a show, it's going to be all over the place. But when I do a show, I basically start by, I pick a city, sort of arbitrarily. I created one Google map that shows me a certain chapter of a certain global animal rights organization that we're not going to mention nowadays. A map of every chapter they have around the world, and then a map of every gay bar in the US and Canada. Not because I need either of those, but I have the gay bar is a purple martini on my Google Maps, and the other one is like a green thing, a green circle. Anywhere on a map, I see those two things close together, I circle it, and I'm like, that's where I'm doing a show. There's an LGBTQ community of some size. There's an animal rights community of some, it's one thing to be like, yeah, there's a vegan in North Dakota. You're like, there are no actively engaged animal rights activists to reach out to and partner with. So I reach out to organizations and I tell them, hey, here's what I'm out to do. I'm looking to do a show at no cost to you. I'm going to do a fundraiser show and raise this much money, 50-50. So everything we take in, half is mine, half is yours. And like, for the record, I always feel guilty talking about that. I feel, how like it doesn't matter that 10,000 people love you if that one person on the internet is like, oh, I can't believe you're profiting off of blah, blah, blah. First of all, profit is not a dirty word. Secondly, it's not my fault we live in a capitalist society. A college student tried to challenge Nancy Pelosi on that, and she just threw the issue away and said, well, we're capitalists, moving on. So believe me, capitalism is not my first choice either. But also, I love statistics so much, I became one. I keep numbers on everything. Doing this has turned me into a spreadsheet data management junkie. In fact, hang on one second. I'm not trying to flash the camera. I'm going to show you my new t-shirt I got in the mail. And I'm happy to say I did not buy this. I won this.
Especially for that.
Doing this for a living caused me to become, and I'm sort of a little OCD, especially with like numbers and like anything quantifiable. Like, I joke about this a bit, but kind of not really. I don't know how many times I blink every day. I know I could ask how often the average human blinks a day. The point is, there is a number. There is an actual answer to that. I just don't know it. What else in my life is quantifiable and trackable and has a number on it that I could look at? And what would that? I actually, while I was on the road, when I was in Cleveland, I stayed with a guy who on couchsurfing.com. We were both realizing, like, you too, like, we're both spreadsheet junkies and specifically interested in tracking data. And he tracked all this different data over years because he deals with depression. Data for like, what was the weather today? Like, what physical activity did I do? Blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, 1 to 5, rate my mood that day. And over 5 years, he was able to notice, he's like, my mood is directly correlated to whether I am physically active, whether I'm letting myself play, whether I'm blah, blah, blah. And so that's why I love data. So out of doing this, I created this spreadsheet that was just going to tell me how much money I've raised for charity and how much I made for myself so far. And then I realized, like, well, I should also track how many guests there were, how long the show was, blah, blah, blah. Now I can actually tell you, on average, I am 18.5 minutes late starting each show. Like, which helps me because trust me, when I'm running late for a show and someone says like, about how long do you need? I will always tell you 5 minutes because I'm afraid to say it's really 10. But now I can tell people, I'm like, usually I start my show about 18 to 20 minutes late. And then on to, like, I will be so late, but perfectly on time. Like, I'll be exactly as late as I tell you I'm going to be. But developing, I'm getting dry mouth from this damn Smile Direct Club. 1 second. This is my third time, maybe fourth, having Smile Direct Club have to redo my aligners because it didn't put my teeth where they're supposed to be. And my other talent, this is a different talk, a different day. I am so great at getting my way with customer service. I got AT&T to take off $2,000 off my bill once. It sounds harder than it was, but it was because of a mistake on their part. When I called Smile Direct to get my tracking number, they give it to you through the automated. And instead of saying the tracking number, they said THETRACKING. And I realized, like, it's spelling out the tracking number for your order is. It's spelling that. And then when I got to the tracking number, it just said 124QW, blah, 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 blah. And I asked them, I'm like, has any of you ever tested the automated system? Have any of you ever listened to it? I'm like, you guys can't get that right. And you're rearranging the teeth inside my head. Do you understand my concern? Do you understand my concern? You can't do that. But you think you can position my teeth. And the guy, like, I could hear him having an aha moment. He's like, we messed up. But what was I saying right before that? Because I was going through, yes. So let me see if I can just sum that up by saying I have become over the years not just a spreadsheet whiz, but basically I have started creating, I would basically call them applications that I've designed just inside of a spreadsheet. And I can count on these applications. Like, I made one spreadsheet that basically writes a press release for me. I type in the city, I type in the date, select the organization from a drop-down menu, select the venue from a drop-down menu. All the information comes up in the spreadsheet. And then over here, the Instagram formatted version comes up where it has the hashtags and it has their @ handle. So that used to take me an hour to do. When I have 5 shows to set up and announce, I have 5 hours of press release writing and double checking everything. And now I spent way longer than that, so that going forward, that now takes me 5 minutes. 5 minutes to set up a new show. I also have one that sends out my pitch letter, whether it's to a venue or to a organization. I have all of these different applications now because, you know, when I was a kid, my dad sat me down in front of a computer when I was I think 5, and he taught me my first line of code. It was just like print, and then you hit run, and then just it puts your word on the screen. And I'm like, oh my god, I told the television what to do when it did it. And over the years, I always used to ask my dad, like, how could I make, like, if there's a lot of work to be done, how much can I offload to the computer so that the computer will do the bulk of the work for me? And so in cases like this where I find myself doing the same thing over and over, it always makes me think, I'm like, do I want to keep spending my time doing this, or do I want to shorten this so I can get back to just coming up with material and whatever? So I've become so good at spreadsheets and data management that I've now created a whole nother career option for me. I have another skill. There's a spreadsheet that I use that manages all my money and all my financial stuff. I pay $60 a year for access to that spreadsheet template. There are companies out there that will create things like that for you. I've created a whole suite of software, for lack of a better word, that any artist or event producer could use that would help run their business so much more smoothly. I could sell that, right? So by following this one passion, I'm all these other things are coming from it that I never would have expected. So that's the spreadsheet thing. I have more to say about a different thing moving forward, but I'll pause for questions.
Okay, the dog's barked, so I put myself on mute. And yes, PAX. It sounds like basic programming. Yes, did that in middle school and junior high for me as
Yes,
well. Yes,
it
you
was
did the
basic
run
programming.
prompt, which is a lot of like
Yes, yes.
DOS.
You know what's funny? When I was a kid, I used to. My oldest brother came back from college and had like this literal floppy disk. Put it in the. If kids today could see what a computer disk used to look like, my God, they're like, "Is this a frisbee?" No. Um, and I would run. I would like launch a program, but then, and I'm like 6 years old doing this. I would interrupt the program, like force quit, and then I would list the code, but it would just scroll faster than you're able to see on the screen. So I noticed that there's a code where I can toggle. No, don't show me on the screen. Show me through the printer. And so I would list out the code, and the printer would just spit off a whole code. I'm like, oh, I've never seen this line of code. What does that do? My brother and I, when we were like 9 or 10, would stay up pulling all-nighters, designing our own computer games. Imagine if I had stuck with that since then and like stayed with computer programming until now. I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing today. But yeah, it was basic. I almost miss basic. I wish I could program in that again. There's no need.
No,
Any other questions?
that's really funny because we're just showing our age. PAX is really funny because they say my first home computer was a Commodore VIC 25K of RAM, 1984, I think. And also that they love that my animals keep running back and forth. Sometimes Marshall becomes the show. Depending on his mood, he just sits right here. So you just never know what's going to happen over here. 3 dogs, 2 cats, and 3 humans in the house. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So Ben, we are like over an hour. It's keeping these at hour tends to make people actually watching them.
So
But
it's starting to break up a little.
like I said, we could do this for a long time. What was that?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
It was just starting to break up a little
we're
bit.
over an hour.
Now
We're almost
I can hear you.
We're almost at.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're over an hour, almost at 70 minutes, and typically try to keep these at 60. I mean, we could literally do this for a long time, but doing it live is a little different if we want people to watch it again. What I would like is for you to share how people can get in touch with you, how people can hire you, any contact information. So anyone who wants to know who Ben is or Honey LaBronx is, just share that with everyone.
Yeah, vegandragqueen.com is basically my everything, my website, and you can find everything through there. And I am at Honey LaBronx, HoneyLabronx. The B is capitalized, no space between La and Bronx. At Honey LaBronx on all social media. I do have a Patreon if you are interested in supporting my work so that I can like do the scrounging for money less and do the creating cool stuff more. I have a lot of stuff I want to create during this pandemic, but I never have time to do it because I have to run around and figure out how I'm going to survive. So there's all of that. Podcast is Big Fat Vegan Radio. Go to YouTube, subscribe to Honey LaBronx on YouTube, and find my cooking show, The Vegan Drag Queen. I won't announce special upcoming projects, but I'm very close to being completely out of my way and having my apartment set up as the Pee-wee's Playhouse, Kramer, Merv Griffin set in his apartment, photo, video, green screen studio. So I have a lot of things that I want to start creating on a regular basis once that's ready. So if you go to vegandragqueen.com and click on mailing list, that is the best way to stay in touch with. And I rarely mail, but if I ever have anything huge coming up, that's how I'll let you know it. And because we're over time, And I don't feel like I fully connected the dots on how to create this for yourself. Let me just close by saying like 3 minutes about, less than 3 minutes. Who am I kidding? The thing that had me start doing this in 2016, Bob the Drag Queen left to film Drag Race. And the day he went to the airport, I went to my restaurant job and I put the waiter apron on and I was telling people what the specials were, and I was telling the people, the co-hosts of one of my favorite podcasts came in, and I'm like reading them the specials. And like, not to disparage, I mean, like, listen, I mean, like, the hospitality will be all, it's such an underappreciated skill. But I was just like, I knew this is not my authentic life. This is not my best self. This is not where I'm meant to be. And I was so depressed and in such a dark place. I remember asking a friend of mine, a fellow drag queen, I'm like, how can you, like, do you know of any jobs that are paying like off the books? Or that, he's like, why don't you just do drag? And I'm like, oh, no, I can't. I'm not into nightlife. I'm not a dancer. I don't know who Ariana Grande is, blah, blah, blah. And then I was hanging out with her. So I'm a person in recovery as well. Next month is 12 years sober. Woo. You can see why, right? Like, no one's wondering, like, why don't you drink? Throw alcohol on this? Are you kidding? But I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and I'm very successful in my sobriety, but not necessarily as a commercially viable performer. My friend, who I'm hanging out with, is a successful, commercially viable artist, but unsuccessful in recovery. He just can't put time together. He's always relapsing. And we're talking, just hanging out, and I'm asking him, how do you do it as a performer? How do you manage to create a path for yourself? And he said, well, my most successful shows have been my 50-50 shows. And I'm like, what's a 50-50 show? He's like, oh, you know, like when you do like a fundraiser, like half of what we raise is me, half goes to them. And I was just like, I can do that. And by being of service that day to a friend in need, who was down and out and just needed someone to talk to, and I was like, cool, I'm here. I'll cook food while you talk, and I'll listen. That is the conversation that sparked the idea that never might have popped into my head otherwise. I don't know. And I went out, and later I found out, he's like, I only ever did one of those. I didn't know that you were going to make. And I'm like, thank you for changing my life. Like, I now have a career. I made this much money last year. He's like, I only ever did one of those. I probably should do more. So that is where that idea came from. Doing drag for the first time only happened because a friend was organizing this drag pageant for charity. And I was just like, you know what? If you need any help with anything, what can I do? He's like, we need an extra drag queen. And I was like, I'll do it. And you know, when I started, and along the way of touring, every little I'll just put it this way, and then I'll wrap this up. I did a show in Chicago, and one of my volunteers, I didn't talk about the full volunteer model. I have so much more to talk about, so I'll do that another time. But in short, that's to say that I get 2 organizations for each show in case one doesn't pull equal weight. And I get 2 volunteers from each show, and I have a Google Doc for everything. I'm like, here are the jobs, assign yourself to one. Here are the docs on how to do your jobs. I roll into a city I've never been to, and I have a team of 4 people who are trained and ready to do the job, and the job gets done like a turnkey business. Like, the job gets done the same way, more or less with some mistakes. Well, in Chicago, I had someone turn up who was like, I can't help today. I didn't know it's not wheelchair accessible. And in the moment, I'm like, oh God, that's a thing. I forgot. I don't want to have to deal with that. And I thought, how can I build that in so I never have to worry about it again? And I made a survey for the venues to fill out. So like, what's your age limit? Do you have smoking? Do you have parking? Is there food? Do you have vegan options? Blah, 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 handicap accessible. And all of that information gets captured and goes in the press release. I don't even have to know the answers to those questions. It'll be on my press release. So every time a problem comes up, I realize it's not a problem, it's an opportunity to figure out how to be bigger and how to be better and how to be more successful and more efficient. And none of it ever comes from sitting down and thinking something up. It comes from being of service, seeing what's needed, and like the ideas come at me. Like the ideas spark in my brain in response to like what's happening out there with other people. So yeah, whatever you're good, like it's so stupid to close this way, but wherever your joy is, that's the thing to chase. And I know I keep saying I'm done. When Bob went to film Drag Race, that was like when I was so depressed about like, oh my God, like what am I doing with my life? And that's when I decided, I'm like, okay, I got fired from the restaurant job, and I decided, well, where else could I wait tables? And I'm like, no, that's a trap. I've done this for 16 years. It led me back to this. This is a hamster wheel. I need to do something new, something else. And right before this, I'm opening one last tangent, but I'll finish quickly. I wrote my first speech so that I could go and talk at Veg Fest. This is the closing point, I promise, because it's a good one to close on. My apologies. I don't understand. Google, we're not talking to you, honey. Shh, thank you. I did my first speech in Iceland at the Reykjavik Veg Fest, and then the Berlin Vegan Summer Festival, biggest vegan fest in Europe. And I gave a speech on pro-intersectional veganism. And when I finished and I came back to the States, I thought, oh, I'm a speaker now. Now I can just sit back and earn a living being booked as a speaker on the Veg Fest circuit. And a friend who is one of the most sought after speakers gave me some advice, and they were like, oh, honey, like no one earns a living as a speaker on the Veg Fest circuit. Like it's just, no, they're like, no one has ever paid very much money to do that. The most anyone has ever gotten paid is this. And because I'm this person, I twice in my life, I got this much, but no one gets more than that. When you tell a drag queen something's impossible, you've paved the way for her. My regular rate for speaking is more than this person ever got. And this is one of the most sought after speakers. And I'm not saying I'm overpriced, but I'm like, listen, doing drag takes a lot of work. If you want me to speak at 11 a.m., that means I have to wake up at 4 a.m. It takes a lot of time. And it also means I'm not available to do anything else that day. So what I thought was the answer had me go in this direction, and then I had an obstacle. And then someone told me, here's the limit. And because they said, here's the limit, I'm like, I don't think so. And I found another way forward. I'm obsessed with asking people what's the right way to do something. So I'm always, before I make a move, I'm always like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I always find no one ever has advice for me, because whatever they tell me, they can't tell me how to be me in my skin, with my perspective, with my gifts and talents. And it's frustrating to me to realize I am always the one that has to come up with my path and my solutions. But at the end of the day, if someone ever comes and says, here's where the limit is, they're lying. Thank them and move on. So yeah, it's kind of like a bridge that I'm building as I'm walking over it. It does not offer, Helene, I'm sure you can agree, this kind of life does not give me any guarantees. It does not afford me certainty or a feeling of security. It affords me travel and adventure and excitement and joy. And that's why I do it, because if I'm getting out of bed in the morning and putting my feet on a cold floor, the only reason I'm doing it not anymore is to make the difference that I want to make in the world, and to get better at my skills that I enjoy along the way, and to make money doing it. The end.
Yes. Well, it's really important that people understand that they need to be able to ask for help, ask for money, ask for donations. All of that has to somewhat come naturally. If someone's starting their own business and they don't like talking to people, not a good idea. If you're starting a nonprofit and you don't like to ask for money, not a good idea. It's, you know, I'm okay with asking for money for us. I prefer to ask for money for other people because, you know, we'll be okay. And when we're not okay, I'll ask for money right now. But, you know,
Yeah.
others aren't okay. So we'll ask for money for them too. You have to be able to ride a roller coaster. You have to know there's going to be ups and downs. You have to know
Oh yeah.
that you're not in it necessarily to be a millionaire, but you are into doing this to be happy, to wake up every day in your own skin, doing something that you love. And like you said, both of us get to travel, both of us get to do things that we thoroughly enjoy and be around people that we like to be around. Because that's one of my things. If I'm going to
Eh,
bring you to our events, I really want to hang out with you. So, because we tend to spend
yes.
a whole
Yes.
weekend together. And if you're someone I go, I don't think I want to spend the weekend with this person, then I'm not bringing you to our events. And that doesn't mean that because
Yeah.
I haven't invited you that you're that person. Just to put that out there as a clarifier.
Sure.
It just, there are people that I've met at other events that I said in my mind, I went, nope, never coming. Nope,
That
no
really
interest.
speaks to the success of what you do and why you're successful is because you come to it from a point of view of listen, there I think I was washing dishes the other day and rearranging the kitchen, and then it hit me. I said, this is my life. This is someday. 20 years ago, if I had had a glimpse of myself in the future in this New York City apartment washing dishes and blah blah blah, I was like, this is my life. We always think our life is this thing that's going to happen once we get over there. This is it. This moment is your life. And you seem to recognize that because you're like, it's not about doing this veg fest so I can get to the other side and survive it. You're like, this is the life that I want to live. I want to enjoy living it. I want to live this with people I enjoy.
Yes. And help raise funds and help animals survive and help people change their health and make sure this planet exists for the future
Yeah.
generations. I mean, that is the number one thing, is educating people on what they can do to make a difference. You know, obviously multifaceted because it hasn't just turned into veganism, Black Lives Matter, racism. It's all important. And it's all
And
stuff that we need to fight for to be on
it
the.
only strengthens my animal advocacy. You know, like the more I can understand other social justice, the more I spot other patterns, and the more I find, oh, here's the common denominator between queer liberation and civil rights and animal rights. People have this silly idea that it takes something away from my activism for animals to stop and focus on people of color. It absolutely does not. That I remember in church as a kid, we did this thing on Christmas where there's like we all know this. There's one candle. We all have candles. You go up and get your candle lit from that one, then you pass it down and pass it down, and by the end of it, the whole church is lit by candlelight. And whatever you think of God or religion or whatever, you can at least admit that that's a beautiful scene. By giving it away, it multiplies. And people, I don't know why people forget that when it comes to causes. Like, no, I can only care about so much. It's like that's not how empathy works. First off, you either have compassion for everyone, or what you have is not compassion. It's favoritism. So like I have to include Donald Trump in my compassion. I choose that because that's the hardest one to think of, right? But when I look at like where he came from and how his mother never hugged him and how weird his upbringing was, I'm like, okay, that would suck to be that person who you have all the power and all the money and all the whatever, and you still don't feel satisfied. I can have compassion for that. I'm not going to go golfing with the guy, but to expand to include someone else in my vision of total liberation, it only multiplies. And this idea that we can only care about this or that is actually the thing stopping us from moving forward. Thinking I need to put the brakes on Black lives, but I'm going to hit the gas on animal rights, that actually has us not in motion.
I agree with you. So I'm going to say thank you. This has been exactly what I thought it would be: lively and fun and not disappointing whatsoever. And for those of you who stuck with us the whole time, thank you as well, because it had pinged all over the place, but that's okay. We kept it going. And then,
Yeah.
of course,
But
I
hey,
will thank
I told
Crafters
you that's how
Organic
it will be,
for,
and I delivered on that promise.
yes, you did. Thanks to Crafters Organic for sponsoring this week's lives,
Yeah.
and for Plant Based Network for being our partner. And an interesting comment just came through that has nothing to do with our talk. So, which happens every so
I'm
often.
sorry I
That's
can't see the
okay.
comments, by the way. I don't know why I can't see them.
It's a comment about mosquitoes. And thank you, Pax. I'm sorry I can't show the animals. They if they decide to come in, they decide to come in, and they do go behind me. And yeah, there's, like I said, 3 dogs, small, medium, and large, and 2 cats. One of the cats is outside, so you can only meet 4 of them if they did want to come into the view, because they asked to show the animals. And of course, Ben's
Yeah.
highly allergic to all of them, so he couldn't even be
Yeah.
in my
I mean,
house if he wanted to be.
obviously,
So
I'm not allergic to a picture of them, but when I see someone letting a dog or a cat touch their face, I freak out. Because to me, I'm like, I can't imagine that everyone is, in my mind, everyone's allergic to cats and dogs. I don't understand how you can't be. It makes no sense to me. And I
yeah, well,
love
we're not.
cats and dogs.
Yeah, I think I might be allergic, but that's okay. They're here.
I've
They're
had
going to live with me.
cats, and I've lived with cats for a big percentage of my life. And I'll usually get it into my system, but like it sounds so selfish, but like I'm not home often enough. I'm my schedule is unpredictable enough, and I don't want hair on everything. It
Trust me,
wouldn't be conducive to the kind of,
Stephen feels the same.
yeah, I can't have hair on
Drives
everything,
Stephen
and
crazy. Trust
there are
me.
too many wires. There are wires and cords and cables and things. It just would not work.
I hear you. But everyone, thank
Cool.
you so much for joining us on this Sunday. And next week, we have talks on Thursday and Saturday. Off the top of my head, I have no idea who next week is, because I always have to look at the schedule. But I am booked through August with these talks. Some of the people that are coming up are people like Chef AJ. And let's see who else is coming up. Dr. Judy Bragman is coming up, and more. Casey Taft will be on here. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people coming up, and more being booked, which is pretty exciting, because virtualvegfest.com is obviously our pivot. Please shop, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you made it this far, thank you. This is a long talk. And Ben, I absolutely adore you, and I love you, and I miss you, and I hope to see you sooner over later outside, like physically, not virtually.
Yeah, all of the same, right back at you.
All right. Have a good day, everyone. I hope you had a good holiday. And remember, as I close this, to wear a mask and social distance, wash your hands, and do the things you need to do. Because if you don't do those things, we don't get to do what we want to do.
Yeah,
And
I
so make
want to
it
see my
completely
parents
selfish.
again one day. I want to
Yes.
see my family again one day.
Right. Family, drag, veg
Yeah,
fest, all that
yeah.
stuff. So,
Hugs. I haven't had a
hugs.
hug
Right.
in 115 days. A
I'm
hug.
so sorry.
Oh my God. The guy at the corner deli the other day, he gave me a fist bump, and I realized I'm like, that's the first human contact I've had in 4 months.
Wow. And I know you don't go out very often. You're kind of like me. You don't really go out that much. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It's a big deal. But I
To,
live
to,
with
to
people.
begin with,
So,
I don't go out that much. But so I kind of am loving this and thriving in it, except my battery recharges by being around people, and I can only go so many days without like social interaction. So, but I do find video chatting is a good a substitute, not a replacement completely, but video chatting helps. So if anyone out there watching just wants to bend my ear and wants to blab and wants me to listen, that would help me. That would help me get my dishes done.
and PAX, they sent virtual hugs. So thank you,
Oh.
Pax.
You know,
I'm sure
I
Ben appreciates
feel
it.
virtual hugs. I have a friend who used to, on AOL Instant Messenger, he would type in all caps hug with like 10 G's on the end. And every time he did that, I kind of just felt hugged. And I love that. Thank you for that. That means I really do love that.
Well, that's wonderful. That's a great way to end this. Everyone,
Yeah.
thank you again. And we will see you next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we'll post who's coming up between Monday and Tuesday. And it'll be a surprise to me too, because I don't remember.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Everyone else,
Thanks
have a great
again.
rest of your weekend. Bye.
All right. Bye.